a lot of SEOs, like legit SEOs, know who you are. Um, and for people who don't know who you are, you give some of the most, some of the best actionable SEO advice. And by that, I mean SEO advice that actually gets results. Like you give SEO advice that actually gets like real results that I have used. I used so crazy. Well, okay, I'll let you introduce yourself and then I'll say like a great story from you.
Okay, okay. So thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And thanks for all of the DMs you sent. Appreciate it. So I've been working in SEO for like over 26 years. I was building websites back in 1995 when I was still living in South Africa. Um, I then became a software engineer at Dell Computers, and then I moved to Dublin and I set up my first company. I set up Primary Position in 2004. In 2014, I became head of marketing for a New York-based software company. That was a client of mine. It was one of my fastest growing clients, and they raised their first 20 million, opened up their European headquarters in Ireland. I became director of marketing and moved to New York, and then in after 6 years, they got acquired for 250 million by Progress Software in Boston, and we grew from like 25, 85 people to 600 in 6 years. It was pretty crazy. And then I went to work at Insights, which is an Israeli New York technology company. Took their digital marketing from 7%, closed one, to 69% in 7 months. And then they got acquired 18 months later for 325 million by Rapid7. And then I was helping Instabase come out of stealth, and they were valued by on CNN at 2 billion after a year and a half. And probably six other companies that acquired Netscope, and a few others. So it's been an interesting 5 years. So I have a great like hobby business or boutique SEO agency. It's myself and someone who's worked for me for like 10 years, 15 years. And it keeps me busy, and it's a great lifestyle. I live in between New York and Florida. And in my spare time, I like to help SEOs out. I learned from scratch. I learned the hard way. And I don't think it's specifically hard. I think it's just a mindset. And so I like to share that with people. And it does ruffle a few feathers, but I'm not out to ruffle feathers. I'm out to say, look, this is how it works, right? So at one end, the end I hate the most, it's like, oh, create great content. And that's lovely, but who gets to decide what is great content, right? And that's the problem I have. And so I think when people go to a forum or go to X and they say, I want to rank, and people are like, oh, create great content. Yeah, that's not how it's going to work, right? There's 10 million results in every index. So I think that's why we're here, right? Is to talk about how do people get up in Google and how does it really work? And so I prefaced this call with an update on X, and I just said, look, I didn't design PageRank, right? I don't love or hate it. I'm not advocating for it. But if you want to rank in Google, unfortunately, you need to understand it, right? And while there's a lot of debate about how significant PageRank's input is, it's still fundamental. And if you can rank with PageRank, then you can rank with PageRank, right? If you can rank with entities, go for it. I just don't see it. I know that Google has a ton of patents. There's a lot of SEO experts who infer things, and I don't argue with them, right? I just don't know how it works in their mind. But I like I said, I run an agency. We work with tech SaaS companies. Most of those relationships are 3.5 years on average. I restarted 5 years ago, so the only relationships I don't have are when companies get acquired and the parent company has its own internal SEO paid search team. I like advising companies pre-seed A, and I also have 3 CMO board offers. And so I'm just here to share with people who are trying to get into Google and say, look, you can do it. You don't have to have a massive brand. Anyone can do it. I'm still romanticized and naive and believe that Google democratized the internet.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I have so many different questions that I could go into. I was going to ask a different question, but since you mentioned successfully helping so many companies, do you have a standard playbook that you run when you get into a company?
Yeah, and I'm kind of like, and it's odd because like my personality is anti-playbook, right? Like I remember when I got hired at Kemp Technologies, the CEO hired me, and the CEO hired me before he became CEO. It's like one of these rapidly evolving things where he was general manager of Europe, and they got asked to he got asked to write the playbook for Edison Partners, which is the venture capital company. Ray is from the same city as my dad's family have been in for like the last 300 years. His family actually owned the oldest post office in Ireland for like 110 years. So Ray hired me, became CEO, and then HR got involved, and they said like, oh, they had to do a personality test, and I just like selected 4 words out of like 100, and it came back with this 2-page report. And one of the lines in it that I thought was so funny was like, it said, David is incapable of doing routine work. But yeah, I have a standard playbook, and it's building topical authority, right? So one of the guys I talk a lot to on X.
Can you explain topical authority for beginners?
Yeah, sure.
Lots of SEO beginners listen to this show too. So when you talk about PageRank, when you talk about topical authority, you know.
So basically, the way Google works, and PageRank NS, or PageRank Near Seed, which is its current latest invocation, looks at how far you are from pages or pillars of trust on the internet, right? So you can take the New York Times as a very big pillar of trust. I always take Microsoft.com as a pillar of trust. And depending on how far you are from them, is your sort of like PageRank score, which is like a numerical long int number, right? So it could be like 1 billion or 100 billion, depending on how many pages are on the internet at any one time.
What do you mean by how far you are from them?
So if you're 100 clicks, like 100 jumps, you're going to be very far down. If you're very close to them, you're going to have a much higher standing of authority. And then depending on the value of that link, right? So how far that link is from the highest point of authority on that site, right? So PageRank itself is a number, but it's expressed as topical authority. So for example, one of the questions you see really, really often in forums is, what is DA, DR, SR, site authority, domain authority, right? So they are typically a number. But if you look at it, a lot of people can outrank Microsoft or Google for very specific terms, right? Like I outrank Google for what is GSC and what is Google. And I do that to prove a point, right? I use my own blog to make a point about how things rank. So if you take that number and apply it as a percentage weighting to a term, you get a topical authority. With a lot of different phrases, you end up with an array. So topical authority is the number converted or representative to a topic. And a topic would be like, what is SEO? What is PPC? So PPC and SEO topics. Or if you're a company like SEMrush, then what is the SERP report is a topic. So topical authority is how you rank and how you convert numbers to ranking for particular phrases.
This method of marketing is so effective, I had to make sure it wasn't against Google's rules before I kept doing it. It's a form of SEO I call compact keywords. Whereas most SEO focuses on putting up articles to answer questions how, what, when, compact keywords focuses on putting up dozens of pages that sell to searchers who are actually looking to buy. These pages rank on Google and convert so much better than normal that when I discovered this years ago, I couldn't believe this was allowed. It's less work too. The average compact keywords page is only 415 words. Compact Keywords is a 13-hour deep course on getting sales with SEO. A customer recently said, each lesson is dense with information. You're giving years worth of experience boiled down into 15 to 30 minute lessons with no filler or fluff. I feel like I'm gaining a new superpower. Compact Keywords is about setting up an SEO funnel that brings you sales for years and years and years. It works with AI, it's less work than traditional SEO, and it makes way more money. You can get it now at compactkeywords.com. Back to the podcast. And so your playbook is building topical authority.
My playbook is building topical authority. I don't like buying backlinks. I think a lot of people think I sell backlinks. I've had that thrown at me a few times, but I like earning backlinks and building backlinks, and I think it's really easy to do. And that's where authority comes from. But authority can also come from building traffic, right? So if you can find a way to rank for like what is GSC, then you can also start to rank for other things around GSC. And that's how topical authority. And I didn't invent that. That was actually cornerstoning by Yoast. So that's like a 24-year-old playbook and it works very well. My second playbook is competitive analysis, right? So, and then my third playbook is use case analysis. So, if you take Kemp, for example, Kemp was a company that built a load balancer. Load balancer distributes users between multiple servers. So that could be for sending WhatsApp messages or email or video streaming. And it's a single product company. And we built a 36,000 page website. So we took every single use case. How do you load balance Nginx? How do you load balance Microsoft Link? How do you load balance Microsoft Exchange Server? And we just went through all of the use cases and produced content. And then translated it into 16 languages.
Wow.
The other playbook I really, really love that I think a lot of new SEOs, that's even more relevant in today's LLM world, is just to go and buy keyword in domain, right? So it's the previous exact match keyword, or EMD, right? Where you would buy a domain name that matched your search phrase and used to rank for it, and then Google somewhat reduced the value of that by about 70%. The thing is that if you look at paid search and SEO, which work really, really similarly, except one has dollar amounts and the other has authority, right? So PageRank and authority in SEO and dollar amounts in paid search. Paid search also has a relevancy and SEO also has a relevancy, right? So if your document is called /load balancer, then it's going to be related to load balancing. If it's /Nginx load balancer, it's going to be relevant only to Nginx load balancer and all derivative terms from that for both paid search. So I use a lot of the same SEO pages for paid search, except where I have to clone them and I don't want duplicate pages. So if we look at sort of like the exact match domain, one of the domains we bought was freeloadbalancer.com, right? So a lot of companies
you bought that?
We bought it and it's still running, right? So if you look at
when was that?
That was in 2014, 15.
Okay.
And so like a lot of companies, we own KempTechnologies.com. We couldn't acquire Kemp.com. It was owned by a NASA jet propulsion scientist who wanted to use it. It was matched his surname. And so we bought freeloadbalancer.com and launched it. And in the first 8 weeks, it generated 600 leads. And it went on to generate 160 leads every single month, including the NSA. I can't confirm or deny that, obviously. But basically, we pared down a cut-down version that had all of the features, but it was limited to 20 megabit per second throughput, which doesn't sound like a lot, but these are typically 30 gigabits a second network appliances. And if you go look for free load balancer today, it's still number one, and the branding is very close to Kemp, and its branding is very close to Progress, and I think that's a really good example of how if you're trying to rank for a phrase that Microsoft, Google, Citrix are all trying to rank for, that's a great way and Amazon, to get into the top of the search results is to have domain names that match the search phrase, build a website on it, and then you can link back to your parent's site. And it's a very, you can buy those domains for $12 on GoDaddy, right? And I think that's very relevant in LLM world because now all of that content is being read and synthesized on the LLM's homepage. And so if they're citing your brand, you don't have to worry about building a massively expensive website, right? You can just get WordPress with a theme, which is what I think we did.
And you said this is despite EMDs getting devalued.
So EMD used to be automatic, right? So if you bought freecoca-cola.com, and people would start searching for how do I get a free Coca-Cola, it would just rank first, and Coca-Cola and Google just downplayed it a lot, and but that doesn't mean it went away, right? So go back to my the similarity I was drawing between paid search and organic is if you look at branded search has a lower cost in paid search, and you typically have a higher click-through rate in organic. So if you're Nike and people are searching for Nike, Nike.com will have a higher click-through rate. That's the only way Google knows it's its brand is that the keyword matches the domain name. So it's still there. Google only just started adding domain name verification. So 8 years ago when Dell was one of our biggest resellers, we actually ran ads for Dell.com, even though we didn't own Dell.com's website. And anyone could run Google ads on any other domain name as long as you outbid that current bidder.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You have all right. So you have some great tactics. This is the one that this was just so crazy. So I saw you post this on X, it was something like if you have a page that is not ranking, and it's not ranking at all, crawled, not indexed, and you think that you have increased your topical authority for the content of that page, take down the page and republish it with a new URL. So I had a page that it was crawled, not indexed. I believe it was crawled, not indexed. It was either past position 50 or it was just straight up crawl. I think it was crawled, not indexed. And it should have been. It was for a very easy term. And I'm like, this is so crazy. This is a great page. It's a great content. It should at least be ranking on page 2 or the bottom of page 1. What is going on? And so I saw this post from you, and other people have since talked about it as well. And you're like, yeah, take down the page, publish it to a new URL. So I changed maybe like, I don't know, I just spent 5 minutes just changing some words on the page, and I used a new URL, very similar URL. I 301 redirected the old URL to the new URL. I can't remember if I submitted the 301 redirect to Google Search Console or if it was the new page. It was probably the 301 redirect because I'd want Google to see that old page is 301 redirected. And I couldn't believe it. In 2 weeks, I wasn't ranking in position 8 or position 7 or position 3. I was ranking position 1 for the target keyword that previously was crawled, not indexed. For years, it was crawled, not indexed. And the explanation that you gave was you put up a new page and it is judged with the new topical authority that you have built since first publishing the page. And that was the reason that was so crazy to me, was because I'm like, well, why wasn't that page, it was crawled, but I guess it wasn't indexed. But if I resubmitted it to Google Search Console, it still wouldn't rank. And I was just like, this is so weird, because you would think that this page, that if you resubmitted it to GSC, it would be judged with the new topical authority. But no, you actually had to publish it on a new URL, and it was like some glitch. It was like some glitch that you found.
It's not a glitch. It's actually how PageRank works. And so I'm beginning to see how some detractors might think that I set you up for this, right? But the way you've actually presented this is actually a beautiful demonstration of how Matt Cutz's version of PageRank is still at play here. And I'll tell you what's going on, right? So here's what happened. As you know, Google calls every URL the canon, right? And that, I think, comes from Catholic law. Like, so when the Catholic Church lays down a law, right, that's law for all citizens in all countries. It's called the canon law, right? So the canon is your URL, and Google doesn't like any variations to it. And so a lot of newbies will say, I've changed my URL, and I'll get all semantic and go like, no, you didn't change your URL. What you did is you had an old URL and you introduced a new URL, right? There's no, even if you 301 it, it's still a newer URL. And that's important because the canon has all of the topical authority and it's unique to that canon. Mm-hmm. And so when you've got a page that doesn't rank, and like you said, it's in crawled not indexed or discovered not indexed, which I think is probably one of the most popular questions for newbies, especially on Reddit. And people will say, oh, it's about your content not being good enough, right? And that's fair, because that is in a couple of videos that Google have released this year from Switzerland, from their Google team, where they say it's because we don't like your content. What they actually mean, or at least I infer what they mean, is no one's linking to you, therefore we think the quality is no good. Because what you've just said is you took the exact same content that was crawled and not discovered. You know, if you go to GSC and say, crawl this page, it takes a few seconds while it lets the bots go and fetch the page, waits for any timeouts, and then it gives you an instant feedback, right? It says, I read the page, this can be indexed. And then you hit crawl or request, and it doesn't go back in. And you're like, wow, well, maybe it doesn't like my content. But then how come 2 years later you picked a new slug? So here's what's going on. The new slug gets a brand new start. And we know from the API leak, how you want to read into the API leak. Sean Anderson from Hobo Web does a huge amount of analysis on this. Great guy on X. Anyone can talk to him. He's not an ivory tower.
What's his name? I'm gonna write this down.
Yeah, Hobo-Web. Sean Anderson, SHAUN. So if you look at site authority, which is topical authority, and Sean just came out last week saying topical authority is 100% a real thing. And Sean and I don't agree on everything, but we are able to amicably discuss everything, and it's really cool. He said, look, so basically your site has a topical authority cluster score, right? And for when you start out and that first page isn't ranking, it's because it's just slightly outside of your topical authority. As you build your topical authority, because that page has no traffic, Google's not crawling it. And that's why pages don't just suddenly burst to life. That's why sitemaps don't force Google to index you, right? If you have a page that has traffic, it'll automatically get crawled. So if you're building backlinks and the backlink comes from an authoritative page, Google will automatically pick it up. If you're upset that Google hasn't picked up your backlink, it's because that page isn't ranking, which means that page will never do you any good. So when you picked a new URL a while later in your topical authority, also site authority, which all pages get and inherit when they're published, that was part of the API call for a new page, that page is now being seen in the light of the topical authority you have. Because it's had no clicks, Google's not automatically indexing it. You don't necessarily have to pick a new slug. You can just do it by making a minor edit and recalling the page, and it will also rank. What you are doing when you pick a new slug is you're actually repositioning it. So the slug is the single most important thing that you can tell Google what your page is about. If you want to see how other pages are ranking, go and look at the slug. Like literally do a search for house cleaning, HVAC in Boston, whatever, click on the top 5 and look at the slug. The answer is hiding in plain sight, right? Literally plain sight. And so when you reindex that page, the slug will change the topic. In other words, if you were saying, for example, how we keep our house squeaky clean, and then you change the slug to house cleaning pro, you've altered it. And if house cleaning professional was in your topical authority, that's why that page suddenly started ranking. And so you've actually also kind of busted the Google content appreciation engine myth, right? That is the thing that Google can somehow gauge the quality of content. I believe Google can definitely work out machine scale spam because it does it very effectively, but I don't think Google can actually determine what content should be in its index, right? Like it indexes a lot of content about moon landings. It indexes a lot of content saying there were dinosaurs on the ark, right? And which may or may not be true. I'm not picking a position here, right? And so I think that's what people have to realize is that not all of the content that we read and write and consume is like, what is the capital of France? What is the capital of DC, right? A lot of it is like, here's an observation about a Supreme Court case, which today is like highly subjective and highly controversial, right? It's not black and white binary facts, right?
So wait, you're saying that the reason the old and I had the keyword in both slugs. You're saying
sure.
that the reason the old page wasn't consistently judged as topical authority was built was because the way that PageRank, I guess, is programmed is the slug is canon. And so it's once. So the reason I'm confused by this is because I'm like, okay, but as you build up your authority, if we could just call it authority, as you're getting better. The thing is, I didn't get. It was like I put up the page, and then I kind of laid off the site for a while, and it probably was on. If I'm being real, it probably was like a year or two that I got like any worthwhile links to the site.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and so that would make sense as to why the new URL would do so much better.
What you can do to sort of test these, right? I'm a big believer in testing things. You know, I like going out and touching things, and one of the best things you can do is go to Search Console, go to Pages, under Pages, see information about index pages. All of the pages that you have clicks for, right? If you look at the last 7 days and look at the pages that had the most clicks, and then inspect those URLs, they will have all been indexed in the last 24 hours. All of your pages will be crawled. Only the pages with traffic will be indexed, right? So what happens is the crawler comes across the page, opens it, takes all of the URLs out, throws them into another crawl list, and then it starts to process. It sends the site name and the fave icon to the snippet builder, which we know is running on its own clock. Then it sends the page CRC check and the page last mod date, and it compares the file size to the last file size, and the indexer goes, I'm sorry, but this page is not getting traffic. I'm de-triaging it. So the pages with the most clicks get indexed all the time. And so because your page didn't get clicks, it's never getting clicks until you republished it. And Google treats it as a brand new page, even though you didn't change the content, right? And so if you look at the way crawlers work and the way a lot of web devs who are focused on sitemaps work, and they work at big websites where they have lots of authority, and then they're trying to give advice to small noobs. Noobs should never use sitemaps, right? What they should do is if you're building and establishing topical authority and you're writing a new blog post and you start at like, what is house cleaning? How do I clean my house? How do I keep my house clean? When should I hire a professional? We're a professional in Boston, right? So that's the most expensive keyword, the highest difficulty. This is the lowest keyword down here. What you want to do is actually link from this page to the next page to the next page, because that gives Google context. So when the spider opens a page that it's crawling every 24 hours, it reads the link, it gets the context from the href text, not from the whole site, and then it passes it on to the next page. What you don't want is for it to randomly find it in an XML list where it has no context, no backlinks, no authority. That's why pages end up as crawled, not discovered, or crawled, not indexed, discovered, not indexed. After you get site authority, and you publish like, hey, we're now house cleaning professionals in Washington, D.C., you don't have to link it to anything. It'll just rank, right?
Yeah. What are the top ways that so you see SEO made way too complicated all the time. Basically, like everyone's trying. Actually, from working in an agency for a long time, I will see SEOs deliberately overcomplicating SEO
Absolutely.
in order to better sell SEO. So
absolutely.
So what are I would see people just making up terms to confuse potential clients. Like that is like
100%.
You see that. So what are the top ways that people overcomplicate SEO? And like if you were to boil it down to like the Pareto principle of SEO things that people should do,
Sure.
especially for noobs.
Yeah, for everyone. So the first thing is Google isn't watching every step you make, right? It's not Sting, right? It's not the German Stasi police. It doesn't care what you do. You can take a page, publish it. If it fails, take it off and republish it, right? Just be careful with the duplicate canon. The duplicate canon means Google actually just holds on to the page title, the slug, and the H1. And that's how it thinks the page is unique. So it's not even a very deep analysis, right? It doesn't actually care about the rest of the content. So you just have to be careful when you're unpublishing pages that it's removed properly from the index before you republish it as a new URL. But try an experiment. So if you
sorry,
publish...
I had one more question.
Oh yeah.
So does the taking down republishing a page as a new URL, is that only for crawled not indexed, or would somebody also do that for, let's say, a page that's ranking on page 2?
You could definitely do it for a page that's ranking on page 2 or 5 or 6. Absolutely. Yeah. So for example, if you wanted to rank for an SEO term and you said you wrote a blog post about latest updates in the Google core engine, right? And you published the URL as Google SEO, and you don't have a lot of authority, you're going to end up on page 900, right? So then you're like, okay, that was aiming a little high. That was a little ambitious for my domain name, right? So you decide to go with Google Core Update March 2026, right? Like very, very specific. And then you republish it. It's a narrower, longer term, and so you need less authority, but you're also using a lot of relevance, right? Like Google doesn't publish a page per every update, so there's no Google competition. And so you might actually rank in the top 5 for that straight away. Republishing on a URL doesn't fix crawl not indexed. It just allows you to use new topical authority. To fix crawled and discovered not indexed, you need backlink authority, or you need to pass authority from an internal page, just to be very clear about how that works.
Okay.
Does that? So as you're publishing and you realize the highest position you're getting to is like page 3, then unpublish and come back, right? And rethink about.
So you're saying let's say a piece of content is not making it past it is actually in the index and it is ranking, it's just not ranking well. And so you're actually saying that republishing the same content under a new, slightly different URL will make it rank better.
Yeah, the file name is the document name, and if you want to understand the importance of it, Google supports 57 file types, of which HTML is just one, right? And PDF and doc are another. Those are the only 3 that actually support headings. Everything else, like .bas, .video, .xls, well, actually it supports headings as well. A lot of them don't support headings, so Google actually gets the document name from the slug. If you upload a video to YouTube and you go and edit it, it will have the file name of the video in the YouTube studio, because guess what? It's the most important thing in YouTube as well. And because Google is built by a bunch of Unix engineers at a file system level, that's how they gauge the importance of the file. So if your file is SEO, you're going to be in an index called SEO, and you're going to be up against Google, Microsoft, SE Roundtable, Nathan Gotch, whatever.
Yeah,
right?
but I'm saying like you literally just add one word to the URL slug.
And what you're doing is you're moving down a less competitive index. And so what you're doing is you're taking your relevancy to however much authority or however little authority you have, and you're making that greater. And then you're appearing in an index where there's less and less competition. So, for example, one of the first pages I outranked for this argument was I had a hacket for Bing Search Console, right? Because Bing still call it Bing Webmaster Tool. So I ranked on page 1 for Bing Search Console because nobody else was ranking for it.
Of
so
course.
if I tried to rank for Bing Webmaster Tools, I would have been down on page 9. What I did is I created a new index called Bing Search Console, knowing that people lazily type in Bing Search Console, and voila, I was back into number 1 position again.
There's a funny story about this. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So once you start getting traffic for it, that's when you establish topical authority.
But yeah, I mean, it's so wait. So if a noob is like, this wasn't what I was originally going to say, but I'm like taking the perspective of, because I know how SEO noobs think, and you do too, because we both set out to help educate people on SEO. So an SEO noob would be like, oh my gosh, I've been ranking at the top of page 2 forever, so all I need to do is republish it under like a slightly new URL, and I'm going to be on page 1. Is that how it works?
So it depends, right? It depends if you have it depends if the key phrase you were publishing under required more authority than you have. So if you're going to publish under SEO and you were to hit number 1, you're going to rank for everything under SEO, right? To a degree. However, if you put another keyword, you're narrowing your index, right?
What if it's a very meaningless keyword though? So
then you won't do anything to yourself.
Okay.
You may actually index yourself out, right? So slugs are dependent. Sometimes if you have a low amount of authority, Google requires every single word in the slug to be present. That's how long tail search works. That's why long tail search works. So a lot of newbies are given advice, go after long tail. So if you have a slug, what is the 2026 Google 4 release 11.3 update? That's a very specific slug, and Google, you will rank first on the odd chance of somebody putting in that entire slug and nothing else. And so that might work if that's a big topic, if has search volume, and it won't work if there isn't, right? So if you change it to like Google dash Magic Duster and no one's searching for Google Magic Duster, then you're not going to get any traffic. But you will be first, right? So that's a bonus, right?
In my case, what happened was it was a non-competitive keyword. Other people were not targeting it. And it wasn't the type of thing where a variation would be heavily targeted either. It was just a straight up like that, and all of it's...
So
yeah.
The example you're quoting is where your page isn't being retouched by Google for 2 years because it had no clicks. And so by pushing it back to the system, it benefited from an updated topical authority.
So what if I had actually driven clicks to it somehow? Maybe I shared it on social and it got a lot of clicks.
Clicks have to come from Google, right? So social media doesn't matter, doesn't help in any way. What Google can only do is look at data in its control, right? So if a page is getting clicks and the specific phrases of the keywords, that transfers topical authority to your page for that keyword. So if your page isn't getting clicks, it's not going to get re-indexed, it's not going to get rescanned, you can leave it there for 10 years. The only way to change it is, let's say you forgot about this page, you didn't republish it, you wrote a new article that went to number 1, started getting a lot of traffic, and you link that article to that old page, that old page will start to rank 100%.
Okay. So you don't have to republish it under a new URL. You can interlink to it with a page that is ranking, that is getting traffic.
Yeah.
Does it have a page that's ranking, that's getting organic traffic specifically?
The URL republishing is for where it's out of your authority zone, where you, like I said, you've picked something like the word SEO or the word Microsoft, you have no hope of ranking for it, right?
Yeah. That's what happened. Was the site was about it. The site was perceived to be about something different when the article went up, which is why it wasn't ranking at all. And by the time I republished it under the new URL, I had put up a lot of content in that new. I'd probably just gotten links that I wasn't even paying attention to within that new sphere. And so yeah, that's it,
Exactly.
it made perfect sense to me. I mean, mostly perfect sense, with the exception of like, I always went by the I always liked the analogy a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes.
Which is like, do like a great holistic marketing, and get branded searches, get some high authority, get a natural mix of backlinks. You want to have a natural backlink profile, get like these things, and then all of your pages are going to start to do better. But I mean, it does make sense if a page is like, if just someone's not clicking on that page from other pages on your site, they're not navigating to it.
There's some brilliant Matt Cutts videos that explain this beautifully. My favorite one, and I actually took a clip of it and put it on my own YouTube channel. One of it is like, what do you mean we can't index in milliseconds? If you're CNN and you have enough backlinks, we'll index it in milliseconds. That was made more than 10 years ago. And if it teaches you anything, milliseconds was the time it took to download the page, not the time to go out and fact verify. Did Russia really invade the Ukraine, right? It doesn't have time to do that. It doesn't have access to that, right? So if they're indexing in milliseconds because CNN has backlinks, if you need any more evidence than that, then I can't help you, right? Then you're just never going to believe, right? And so the second thing he said is, when they first built Google, it took 3 months to index the web, and the web was tiny back then. When they released Caffeine, they started triaging the web, and they said, we will literally crawl the most important part of the web every 24 hours. So if your pages aren't getting indexed, they're literally triaged out, and that's why your page wasn't getting crawled. And if you want to stay in the same vein of topical authority and schema and other conflicting evidence, I'll give you 2 conflicting ideas for newbies for building topical authority around FAQs and people also ask, right? So people also ask and FAQs are 2 great ways to build topical authority. And the best way to do it is without schema. And of course, right now, everyone's running around saying you need schema, right? And I'll use schema if I work for a hotel website, but I don't work for any hotel websites or airlines, so there's not really any need to use schema. But if you let's say you're trying to rank for a particular topic, go and build an FAQ, but build every single answer on its own page, and then you don't need to use schema. And what you're doing is you're exactly using the entire URL as relevancy. If you put it all in one page, you're now splitting the relevancy and authority of that page against all of those FAQs, against keywords that aren't in the slug in the page title. So if someone says to you, again, it's going to be web devs, because it's easier for web devs to create a schema and allow people to write all of the FAQs out on one page, and it'll work if you're a Cisco, and it'll work if you're any high DA site. But if you're a newbie and you've got no clicks, it's just not going to work. The other thing is, if you've got a page that's getting a little bit of traffic, and it's sort of like you're trying to rank for a high term, but you're getting like lots of like little what is questions, you don't need like a tool like Surfer or content optimization tools. Go to GSC and look at the phrases that you're on page 2 for, and use those as H2 headings on that page. They'll get more clicks, and your topical authority will go up, and you will rank higher. And it's the easiest thing in the world. And you don't need any tools to do it. And that's how cornerstoning works. That's 2 completely different contrasting ideologies, right? The one says, go and use every question on its own URL. And the other one is put the H2s on the same page. And that's because SEO is a system, right? It's not a binary checklist. If you're going to go in and go, you have to have an image, and you tick all these boxes, and it's not working. We know it's not working because people come to forums every day. And I think I told you I volunteered on the Google product support forum for 9 months. It was a thankless job, and I gave up. People were coming with I'm doing everything right. I'm getting a rank math score of 10 out of 10. And I'm getting this. And it's like, these things don't matter. They're trying to teach you the basics of slug title H1, the trilogy, so to speak. But if you look at it as a system, if you've already got a page that's getting clicks, you already have some authority. By putting H2s that exactly match the phrase, you're just up leveling what by what. If you have no clicks, you go and build FAQs out on their own pages until one of them ranks and starts getting clicks. Then you go up from there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Also, it's really interesting that you brought up that FAQ example. You are literally the second person to say that to me in the last week and a half. And I had on these, they were old school SEOs on my show, and they had like rebranded themselves as kind of like online reputation experts.
Okay.
They made an FAQ tool where so they were telling me about this on the podcast, and I got some heat from the comments because I was grilling them on this. They're like, yeah, we made this FAQ tool and it improves organic rankings or it improves the traffic you get from organic search. And what it does is it actually makes every FAQ question as its own page. And I'm like, wait. Isn't that going to bloat the site? That's like that. And they're like, yeah, actually it's its own subfolder. And then I'm like, are you telling me that there's a new subfolder for every question off the root domain? Isn't that going to bloat it? And what it really is it's you have like a product page, and then off the product page, all the different questions that people might have, those are their own subfolders, and then the slug after the subfolder is the answer. And those pages, they're not very long. I don't know if I would categorize them as thin content, because it is useful. It is useful. And anyway, so these then they talk to me about FAQ schema, and I fall into the same camp as you with schema. I make a lot of episodes on it. But yeah, so they were sending me screenshots afterwards about the results that this gets, and you were the second person to say, like, take your FAQ questions and put them on separate pages. Even if it would be seen as thin, the fact is these are useful pages.
So, absolutely. And the thing about thin content is, if you actually go read the Google SEO policy spam guide, Google's very clear on its penalties, right? And thin content is only a penalty when it's with affiliate content. Otherwise, there's no such thing as there's no word count minimum. And so if there's no word count minimum and there's no thin content, then there can't really be a content quality standard, right? You can put up a table or a spreadsheet or a video with no content. Google doesn't watch the video. It still doesn't watch the video. So you can put up any content you want. And FAQs with 100 words or 10 words are perfectly enough. I mean, one of my favorites is like, how do you spell VPN? Right, and that's for a client of mine out of California, and we get a ton of traffic for people looking for VPN, right? And it makes no sense, because if you've typed it in, you've spelled it, right? Well done, right? But we get a ton of traffic from that. And there was another client in cybersecurity, the board of directors, they were still in stealth mode, so the board of directors was like, had eyes on our SEO strategy, and they were like, no, we're not putting up a glossary. I'm like, we've got to put up a glossary. And we went for months. And eventually they let us put up a glossary. Now they have 9 glossaries, right? And what we found is not only did we get a ton of topical authority, but we actually started getting leads. And 25% of their traffic comes from the glossary. And they're so cutting edge that they don't realize they're cutting edge. They were bringing AI into cybersecurity a long time ago. And there were people that were, getting new job titles, right? So things were moving from CISO to BISO, and people were getting these job titles not knowing what they meant, and they were actually Googling them. And it was something we learned from working in tech, where we did FAQs and we built Visio stencils. And what we would do is we'd draw up a network diagram and insert all of our points of technology. And then we would create icons for the sysadmins to drop us into their own Visio stencils, because that's how they would map out data centers and network diagrams. And it was a great way for them to visualize where we sit on the network and how much intelligence we could gather from all of their different applications that they were load balancing, for example. And what we found out is that a lot of people, if they're building a slide, they're doing a presentation to the board of directors, they want to use terminologies that everyone else understood. And so it's a great way to create a path of discovery for someone who would never otherwise Google something they didn't know about, to suddenly come into the company and discover it through the glossary.
Well, so what do you think about AI-generated glossaries that people are doing now?
It's going to be a huge challenge, right? It's going to be very difficult. I use a lot of AI-generated content to help me.
Do you?
It's great. I do, yeah.
Okay, so to what extent is it AI generated and not reviewed? Is it AI generated and reviewed, but like you barely edit it? Like, yeah, what are we saying here? Are you keeping in M dashes? Are you removing M dashes? Are you keeping in buzzwords? Are you removing buzzwords?
I don't care about M dashes, so I keep them. And funny enough, I got Perplexity to make a list of SEO job titles, and I put the table on a blog post, and a minute later I was actually ranking in Google where it listed all the job titles that Perplexity had created, right? And so there's no way in a table like that for Google to know if that's AI generated. And Google doesn't ban AI content.
Right.
And it comes back to, I'll maintain that Google's content agnostic. And so
I had you know Bill Hartzer, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah, I had the same conversation with him on the podcast, which is like, he's like, yeah, they don't tell if it's AI generated or not.
No.
Yeah.
They have a policy page. You can literally go to and they say, we don't care. And if you look at, it was actually Richard Hearn, who's another Irish SEO, phenomenal SEO. He's very quiet. He's on X. He actually tweeted about the DOJ trial, where Google took a slide from the HR onboarding process with two people sitting at a desk going, we don't understand content, so we guess and we surface and see and we test people like it. And that's click-through rate testing. So Google will test your content, and then if people search with the same topic again, other pages will get rewarded if they click there, and your content will go down.
Okay, wait. So I have a okay, shoot. Because I want to ask you about your take on AI, but I literally have this on my list of questions, and this is something that I was personally very curious about. You wrote on LinkedIn, Google doesn't use bounce rates / dwell time / Chrome data.
I don't think it does.
Even and obviously you referenced the Google API leak before, which was all about this stuff.
Yeah, so it's and also back to Sean Anderson, HoboWeb, and why I referenced him is he said that they actually did say that in the trial that they do potentially use that data. The reason I don't think Google uses dwell time, apart from the fact that they've been pretty adamant about it, and I know people say like you can't trust Google, but if you can't trust Google, then where do we get anything, right? Where do we get PageRank? Where do we get CWVs? Where do we get anything? So you have to try to figure out for yourself. You have to use critical, but more importantly, you have to test and experiment, right? And so if you look at the amount of content and the way people read blog posts, so if you take even a big website and you go to analytics and you look at just the blog pages and you look at the bounce rate, it's 100%. The number of people that read a second page is very, very small. So people will go in, read a blog post about why is gold up today, what is the economic situation in Europe, where is this healthcare medication at, how does this work, what does this mean? People don't go and browse your whole website, right? And so I don't think dwell time is a significantly important metric. I think it's an important metric if you're writing content and you want to measure how that content's performing. If you think like, well, I'm going to write 5,000 words and it keeps someone on my page. If you go and install Microsoft Clarity or any other screen recorder and you watch how people scroll and they look for things and they underline things and then they vanish, I don't think you can punish websites for that, right? Like you might have somebody who might come in and read 10 pages, go away, come back 6 months later and fill in a contact form in 9 seconds. Do you punish the website because they've converted someone from 9 months ago? If you look at CTR testing, it's much more efficient. In other words, if I type in, I recommend the best CRM solution. And if I keep searching for it and I click on the first answer, that gets 100% click-through rate. If I click on the second one, they're both getting 50%. But now the second one has a higher than average click-through rate. The first one's in trouble. And if that happens and happens and happens, eventually they'll swap. Or if the fifth result comes in and people start going to the fifth one and it gets a 30% click-through rate, it will take over the first one. And that makes a lot more sense because all of that data is in Google's control. Once people bounce out to other websites, you can quick load a page. Suddenly it's a 2-page visit if you have analytics on it. Secondly, easy to forget in the US, but the European Union, which is a much bigger population, that's blocked by GDPR, and Google can't do it. And then Chrome isn't universal, right? It doesn't sit in every desktop. It doesn't sit in AIG where they only use Internet Explorer 3 or something, or 6, right? And so that data becomes very dangerous. It's very, like I said, it's...
So you're saying it still uses clicks, but it doesn't necessarily use, like, pogo sticking, for example, isn't actually as big a deal as people say, but at the same point, clicks from the SERP. Okay.
Pogo sticking is, right? Because it's it's me jumping around and selecting different solutions. And every time I click on another result,
you go into page 1 and you're like, this doesn't have what I need. You leave.
Go
to result 1 and then you go back to Google, then you go to result 2.
Pogo sticking is the way it works.
Okay. So Pogo sticking is a thing.
Yes, and then do people like click on the same result or the same website even if it's not in the same position, or do they click on site links, which is a part of Twiddlers and Nav Boost. I think if you also look at the document API warehouse leak, you have to remember that it's a document warehouse for an organization's in documents, and so having an author in a company or having people do something in the same browser is completely different than the public World Wide Web, right? Those are two different things, and so that's where it falls into interpretation, and you can have philosophical debates.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
So that's my view on it. And like I said, if I look at the number of pages that we build that just bounce, yet they don't lose their rank position, then dwell time is something I worry about. And I think one of the things
so long clicks versus short clicks, thing or not really a thing?
I don't think it's a thing.
Okay. Pogo sticking is a thing.
Pogo sticking is definitely a thing. Yeah, you can do, and that's how click-through rate manipulation tools work, and they're very, very effective, unfortunately. Yeah. But people get addicted to them and they bust themselves. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you can see when people are using. It was a very nice person who came to a forum a couple of years ago. I think it was after the March helpful content update, and they said, "Oh no, my site's been destroyed, and how I'm going to feed my kids." And a lot of people gave advice, and I gave advice, and she IM'd me, said, "Could you help me?" And I said, "Yeah." And it took a few months, but she eventually gave me access to her search console, and I had a look. And every Thursday, the number of impressions for what she was doing just went up, and all her clicks and click rates just went radically down. And so we figured out who it might be, and she reported it to the Google spam report, and then also she had a lot of cannibalization, and it took about 6 months, but eventually she was on the right track.
So I don't know, to what extent did she rebound?
Like, she's in the top 5.
So you're saying a competitor was doing negative SEO to her, or someone on her team?
No. Another company was using a click-through manipulation tool. Click-through manipulation tool is bot traffic that simulates a search and then clicks on a result and pushes it up by changing the over average CTR.
Right. And so this other company was doing that to her as negative SEO to get her pushed down.
It'll be negative to everyone else, right? Because it's only clicking on their result. And that's effectively how you catch yourself out. You get addicted to it, right? Because once you stop, you start to fall again. So they've got to keep doing it. And then they've got to add more and more keywords, right? So they figure out, oh, I've got this keyword, but I'm not getting a lot of leads, so I'm going to try this keyword. Okay, now I'm getting leads, I'm going to try another one to get another one. And they get greedy, and then eventually Google can see this pattern, right? Every Thursday, there's like a million more clicks than normal, and their bot traffic master is able to catch it.
Wow. And so you saw that, you were looking at Google Search Console, and you saw, every Thursday, what's going on here?
Yeah, I one of the things I joked about when I left, like, in my agency work, and I was working with 12 companies, and I went in-house, is I didn't know how to spend my time. I was actually given every Friday off so I could run other projects, just so I wouldn't, just so I could not get bored. And so I have the projects I work on and the people I work with, but in order to sort of like stay ahead of the curve, I take on other projects that I help people with pro bono. And so I have like 200 domains in my Google Search Console, and so I can see really, really wild edge cases, and that helps me a lot with correcting my understanding of how PageRank works. Like, I'm incredibly efficient because I'm lazy, right? I think I don't know if it's an urban legend, but Bill Gates is credited with, if you want to solve a complex problem quickly, give it to someone lazy, they'll find the fastest way. And that's something I learned as an engineer in Dell, which I'm really grateful for. But I do not have a checklist of we need 100 things for a page to rank. We need 3 things. That's it. When people say like, "Oh, will you review this for content?" No, I'll just admittedly say no. I won't. I'll review it once it's ranking, but I'm not reviewing it today. You publish it as fast as humanly possible. We'll look at the data. The data will tell us where to go. very, very adamant about reducing the number of things to do. I do not believe in adding 120 things. If there's 5 things and it works, then we stay with those 5 things. There's no need to change it.
I'm adamant about that too. And I also believe that everyone overcomplicates SEO. I just
100%.
Yeah. But okay, so I really want your take on AI content. Using AI to create content. To what extent is it fine? To what extent is it not fine? To what extent should people do it and not do it?
Going back to pragmatic testing and Google like not watching your every step. Julian Goldie actually did this when he got banned, and Google released an entire update for him. So if you're getting hit by updates, you're following the wrong SEO influencer. But what he did is he got a Google spreadsheet, LinkedIn, and some robots to build an entire website about birds, I think, right? And so he went and he got like keyword research, everything to do with birds, your FAQs, built it, got backlinks, automated, and within 12 hours he had like 1 million visits, right? That level is detectable and penalizable, and you'll get thrown out of Google. Where is Google going to go with AI? I have no idea, right? It's going to be really interesting. A lot of people are very adamant that Google can catch and detect AI. And yeah, you can quote examples where you can go and, for example, like you were saying earlier, M dashes, you can go to...
Oh, no, I was actually saying that for humans because I think...
Yes, yeah.
Because I think, I just think it'll increase bounce rate by savvy readers. Smart readers.
Sure.
Stupid readers, they don't know. They're like unknowledgeable readers.
Don't know.
But if you are targeting people who are smart, they might be able to tell.
See, the other thing as well is like there's a lot to be said for ranking first in Google, and that being EEAT all on its own, which we didn't get to, and I already just rambled on indefinitely.
Yeah.
But
you write a lot about that.
Yeah. If you actually go and click on the first result in Google, unless it's like really, really wild, people will run with it, right? And I've seen people quote things because people have bombed Google, right? They've ranked the wrong thing in purpose. Like I think there was a cartoon from Dilbert where somebody goes and Googles something and it comes up as true, and she goes like, yeah, I'm either really clever or I'm just really good at SEO, right? Like, and I can change your perception by ranking because people tend to accept what they're given. So I've seen people pick up on landing pages and accept it just because it's from Google, right? Obviously, if it reads like slop, it's going to read like slop, you know? So I think, yeah, you should edit. If you're going to write something and put it out there, you should read it for sure.
Is that what you're doing?
Absolutely, yeah. I for example, I might use LLMs as a way of getting over writer's block. And so what I'll do is I'll get it to write a blog post, and I'll go like, I don't like EEAT, so I'll go and delete that, and I'll re-edit it the way I want it to. But it'll give me the rough layout and the starting point, because otherwise I'll obsess about it. And so LLMs help me write blog posts a lot.
Yeah, I mean, LLMs help me with content a ton.
Mm-hmm. I
talk about this, like, it's certainly not perfect. So actually, like, all of the descriptions for my podcast episodes are created with ChatGPT. ChatGPT, even for a 10-minute episode, a 10-minute transcript, ChatGPT will hallucinate into the description things that I didn't talk about or things that we didn't talk about. It'll say that we talked about these things. It'll say that we explained these things. That never happened, so then I have to fix it. But it does overall does a pretty great job, and I just have to make some corrections, and it's a lot faster than me having to do it myself.
As someone with like ADHD, what I find is like if I'm on the way to the beach, because our building here in Florida has a driver, so I don't have to drive anywhere. Whenever I'm waiting for anything, I'll be on Reddit and I'll like fire off replies with lots of typos and stuff, and there's my proof it's not AI, right? And then when I want to write a blog post, what I'll do is I'll just tell whatever LLM I'm using, look, go to Reddit or go to X or go to LinkedIn and read what I wrote and write a blog post about it, and it does a much better, more polished job, and that helps a lot.
I want to ask about publishers and the helpful content update. So what do publishers who want to succeed with SEO, what do they need to be focusing on today?
You mean in terms of like AdSense and affiliate stuff?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they have. I mean, they're a publisher, so maybe they're monetizing with display ads, or maybe they're monetizing with affiliate links.
That's a great question, and I know very little about it. I was online for the whole sort of when HCU exploded, and there was a lot of anger and a lot of businesses got taken out, and I spoke to businesses in Canada and the US and Europe who were losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in ad revenue a month. Sean Anderson on HoboWeb is actually a great resource for that. He reckons that that a lot of EAT principles could apply for YMYL topics that are monetized, right? He says like if you're monetizing it, it's going to be very difficult to rank. I don't know a huge amount about it, to be honest. Some of the SEOs I've spoken to are like, it's clearly there's a lot of link farm irregularity. Whatever heuristics Google are using, that could be it. I know that there are some SEOs who think that it's LLMs picking up on similar patterns across the content. Some people have said it's the monetization, and Smarty from SEO Smarty, she says, look, she's spoken to hundreds that didn't have any monetization and also got caught on HCU. So HCU is a very, very big landscape, and it's one of those things where I think, the analysis isn't final. Google's clearly done something clever, and we're sort of like missing it. And also they're saying if you move your content to a fresh domain, it's not going to help. And I don't know. So I don't exactly know how it is. And I think it's one of those things where where you need tools, and SEO tools that can help analyze that don't exist, right? Like for example, SEMrushes or that sort of genre of SEO tools, their ability to determine toxic backlinks is just laughable at this point, right?
That was actually that's another thing that I wanted to ask you about since you brought it up. You wrote on LinkedIn, you said spammy quote unquote looking backlinks won't get you in trouble. So my question is, because I mean you probably see this as well, like people worrying about backlinks, people using the disavow tool when they shouldn't be using the disavow tool. When should SEOs actually be worried about backlinks? What sets off red flags with Google?
Yeah, that's a great question for Grumpy SEO guys, subreddit probably. But the problem is that Google calls it link spam, and it's a bit like that old IRS joke, tax avoidance and tax evasion. Tax avoidance is legal and tax evasion is illegal, though it's not really, it's just a term, right? SEMrush includes way too much UGC content in its toxic backlink list. And I think a lot of people think that spammy looking websites are bad. They're not. What Google's looking for in link spam is actually people looking for for placed links in content that form unnatural networks from link farms. That's not the same as appearing 100,000 times on Blogspot blogs or adult content. A lot of people, really confusing, a lot of people think that adult content is a no-no. And I'm like, where do you think adult sites get all their traffic from, right? Like, it's not like, fair play to you for never Googling anything, right? But if you Google it, Google's full of it, right? They're not content police, right? So I think that people get very worried when they see backlinks they don't understand, and I understand it because like Penguin, Panda, that era, Google clamping down on bad backlinks. I think what Google does now is it zeroes link farms, and it issues the penalty to the link farm more so to the recipient of the backlink in the sense that you can't control your backlink type thing. I don't think SEO should be disavowing backlinks unless they've been buying hundreds and hundreds of backlinks. I do know websites, big SEO companies that do disavow backlinks, but they disavow backlinks they've bought, and I have seen their traffic improve after taking hits, but it's very specific. They know the backlinks they bought. I think that, and I only know of like a handful of cases around that. I think for the most part, unless you're buying backlinks and you're getting caught with them, and another reason not to buy them, the disavow tool is not for you.
Yeah, I agree.
But it does still work, right? I've seen webmaster replies from Google saying we've received your disavow list. But whether the site is going up because of them rushing to do a bunch of things to fix it, I don't have the time to analyze it.
Yeah.
But
what were you
for
gonna say?
newbies, do not worry about.
Yes. Yes. From my experience, like it's really a problem when you actually start to rapidly lose organic traffic. Like that's when you should just like as a proactive solution. I believe it is quite dangerous.
I think even if you're losing traffic, like so, if you think about it, you're not ranking. You get an email from someone who says, "I've got some backlinks." You buy them, you start to go up. Because you're probably buying from someone that is outreaching millions of people. They're forming a heuristic. You're part of the heuristic. You get caught in the net, and your traffic's going down. I don't think you should disavow. I think what's happened is the backlinks are zeroed. They're not passing authority. You're falling down again. I don't think you. I don't think you have to disavow it. I don't think it'll do any damage, but
I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't. I'm not referencing if you're actively engaging in black hat stuff. I'm
Sure.
referencing the people, because I think a lot of people who want to use a disavow tool are worried that they got hit with negative SEO.
Yes, yeah.
That's
Negative
kind of what
SEO is very
referencing.
Yeah, don't. Negative SEO is actually hard to do, and you actually, unless you have been dabbling in backlinks and know the value of them, it's actually easy to get it wrong, right? You could actually buy links worth thousands of dollars and actually help your competitor, right? And so negative SEO is actually very hard to do in real terms, I think, right? Except, again, click-through rate manipulation and things like that.
I have seen a bunch of times though where people are trying to game Google, and they buy all of these exact match anchors, and then they lose a lot of rankings, or they lose a lot of traffic from the exact match anchor text, which is like the abundance of it, which I've seen to be a very common mistake that newbies make, is that and it's very unnatural. But
Sure.
There are some interesting, I'm sure you're familiar with the same like experiments. I forget if it was Search Pilot who did this experiment, and they bought it was like they were targeting these like pool cleaning. It was like this, it was a site they owned, and they were experimenting, and they bought I think it was 100,000 backlinks, and it was only the last batch of backlinks that completely tanked the site. I don't know if you know what I'm referencing. But it was.
But I'm going to look it up.
But it was. Oh, I'll send it to you after this. It was very. But it was from. It was from like a decade ago. So you know.
I did work on a site that was from the UK many years ago, where they had bought 1 million backlinks, and they got caught out, and they were making huge amounts of money. I think it was for custom license plates, and they didn't tell me. They were like, "Oh, we don't know what went wrong," and I was like, "Oh, I'm starting to find all these backlinks," and they're like, "Oh yeah, maybe we bought a couple," and then just became 1 million. I was like, I'm just not interested. Like, I don't have the time or day to help you with this.
The thing that annoys me about buying backlinks is you see it done by so many people who are just very unfamiliar with SEO, and you're just like, it's like you're going to put all this work into a domain. You don't really know much about link building. And it's very likely that you're going to mess this up, and then all that work is going to be for nothing.
Like you said, if you're buying the same anchor text and you're buying hundreds, you're creating heuristics, right? Heuristics is just a fancy word for patterns, right? That are, it's common. It used to be common in antivirus terms, and it's now common in cybersecurity. But you're effectively creating heuristics for Google to identify unnatural links. And like you said, if you don't know what you're doing, you shouldn't be doing that. But also, if you look at the backlink selling world, it's very set up to prey on naive owners, right?
Yeah.
Very, very much set up. It's easy for me to say, "Oh, I never buy backlinks," and I don't mean to do it from to take the higher moral ground. I'm just lucky I don't have to, because I have a lot of people that partner with Microsoft or Citrix or with each other. I genuinely have companies from opposite sides of the country who partner with each other in real terms, and so I'm very, very lucky, and I can build topical authority very, very quickly, and so I realize I'm very lucky. It's easier said than done, right? If you've got a HVAC business that you want to hand down to your sons one day, you don't want to lose out because your competitor's buying backlinks. I think it's very unfair. I think you might say Google went too hard with what it did 10 years ago. It might have gone too hard with what it did in HCU. I don't think it's dealing with backlinks. I actually did tweet John Mueller about it, and I said, what is the story? Are you penalizing for it? Because there are mixed stories. I remember someone who did niche sites got an email weeks after the HCU saying that one domain had fallen, and then 2 days later, 2 other domains had fallen for single guest posts. And it doesn't seem to be very equitable. And I don't know if if Google's just playing a quiet game there. But I do empathize greatly with small business owners who are buying backlinks. It's like you said, it's very dangerous, and you can destroy a business, right?
I want to switch it up. So you said you can build topical authority really fast. If you were to just give, and you also said that there are like 3 things to really focus on that move the needle. You said that earlier when we were talking. 3 things that move the needle, and you can build topical authority very fast. So if you were to talk to like a new SEO and tell them like, this is how you should build topical authority really fast, here are the 3 things that you should also be focusing on, what would that be?
So keep building content until you can land. Absolutely build your visibility and profile, right? So while I'll say, look, social media links don't get you anywhere, and the social media profiles don't get you anywhere, and that's because they don't. It's still worthwhile to use social media to go and find business partners, go and network, right? Like I'm a huge fan of the Open Coffee movement. So basically, or BNI or Chambers of Commerce. If you've got a HVAC business, why wouldn't you team up with the local electrician or plumber? You're servicing the same people. If they're reputable, and you go and service someone's house, and you're an electrician, a lot of appliances that use water also use electricity, right? And you don't get a lot of people who are certified in both. Don't you want someone you can recommend to your clients that is going to follow up and has the same sort of standards and qualities that your organization, your brand espouses? Why don't you link to each other? You can absolutely do that, right?
And it's not black hat.
And
it's not black hat because of what's actually behind it, which is you're a reputable business and you're related to this other reputable business, and you would actually recommend this business to a friend. That's how much you trust them, and vice versa. And so you guys are linking to each other.
If you're an SEO agency and your client needs to build an e-commerce shop and it's not something you have in-house, you don't want to bring in a web agency that's going to compete with you. You don't want to bring a web agency that's going to let you down, right? And vice versa. Web agencies don't want to bring in an SEO who can't move a needle. And so those relationships are very important. And if you look at like SEO speakers, they're very clever at making sure that they're mentioned and that they've got contextual links and they link to each other and they talk about each other. And they're playing PageRank. And a lot of people play PageRank and talk about other things, right? Like there's a writer who talks about like, oh, Google's actually measuring content and keyword count and outbound citations, right? There's nothing stopping you from linking to Harvard University. That's not a control. But at the same time, they're using PageRank. Like there's a very famous SEO who espouses EEAT, and I think EEAT's a great thing. I just think EEAT isn't like making claims, but they actually bought a bunch of domains with EEAT in it and then redirected to their blog post and redirected their personal website to their agency's website on the page of EEAT. So they were using PageRank to push EEAT. And so it's kind of like, well, so, you know it's PageRank, right? You can see it. You can take a screenshot of it because you can see it. So I think if you're a newbie SEO, you can spy on backlinks using Bing Webmaster Tools for free. Bing Webmaster Tools is, if you go use Bing Webmaster Tools before you buy a $100 a month tool, you can take any domain name and Bing will give you all of the backlinks minus spam. So if you look at NP Digital, one of the best known SEOs in the world, and look at his site, Bing will return all 76,233 domains that link to him. And you can spy on every single one of them for free.
I was actually, at one point, I don't know if I'm still ranking for this, but I was ranking for free backlink checker. And it was with a YouTube short that I made about using Bing to see backlinks.
Okay, I tried that as well. So that's interesting that you got there.
Oh, you tried that? Well, we actually. So you're the second SEO that I know of who has been on this show who I share a SERP with, and so okay. I had Joy Hawkins on, and Joy and I have both made YouTube shorts on link echoes, where you get a backlink. You know what link echoes are, where you get a backlink and then you lose. Oh, so link echoes, you get a backlink, and then you lose that backlink. But the positive effects of that backlink actually persist after you lose it, and it's this thing called it's called link echoes or link ghosts. That's another name that it goes by, and I'll send you the article on this. And so I made a YouTube short about this. I mean, it was a TikTok comes out to Instagram and to YouTube Shorts, and actually that one video on all 3 platforms ranked in 3 positions for link echoes, SEO.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Joy Hawkins then, she also made a video on it. And so then we were sharing a SERP, and she came on my show and we got to talk about that. Now you rank for King of SEO. And
Okay.
I also rank for King of SEO, and we share this because I had on my mentor and a close friend. He was head of SEO at Omnicom, and when we were at Dentsu together, he was like my mentor at Dentsu, and then I left, and we just became close friends after. And after Dentsu, he went to Omnicom. He was head of SEO at Omnicom, and I would call him because Omnicom at one point was the most valuable publicly traded marketing agency in the world. At one point, it was like the most valuable. And he was head of SEO at Omnicom, so I would call him the King of SEO. And when I had him on the podcast, I named the show the King of SEO. And then I was ranking on page 1. I don't remember the position for King of SEO, and you are also ranking for King of SEO.
Interesting. And I picked King of SEO. God of SEO was taken by Charles Float. And
Charles Float is coming on the show in a few weeks.
Okay, well, that's why I didn't go for that one. So King of SEO came up because when I initially searched for King of SEO, and it was back when I was trying to show people how a way to get into LLMs was just via SEO, right? Particularly Perplexity. ChatGPT just takes a bit longer. And by ranking in Google, the results were mirroring each other through the query fan out. And King of SEO just looked like something I could get done, and I could also take the YouTube video spot for potentially, right? That's what I was thinking at the time. And if you ask Perplexity and ChatGPT who the King of SEO was, they started with, there's no such thing. This is an absolutely ridiculous idea. No one can be the King of SEO. There are no titles. There are no awards. And it's like, wow, it sounds really researchy. So I went and wrote an article about who the King is. And I'm pretty sure it's pure LLM content. And again, because it's made up, like who cares about the quality? So, and then I ranked for it. And then I was like, within seconds, I was ranking in Perplexity. And a couple of people like went and said like, yeah, it's not a huge search term. I'm like, yeah, this isn't an exercise in how SEO works, right? This is an exercise in how LLMs work. And it kind of showed that once they had content that said someone was a King of SEO, the narrative changed completely. And so I very much wanted to use it as a, there are not research tools. And so that's not my fault, right? But if you're an SEO and you're a company and you're trying to work out how to get into LLMs because it's vital for your business, it's good to know that, right? And that if you rank for something in Google, there's a very good chance you'll rank in most LLMs, including ChatGPT, for it. And so it was a really, really good experiment from that point of view. And I can think of dozens of other cases as well around those terms. And so that was why I did it, and I'm very fond of that experiment. That you can change something that was so adamant,
Oh yeah, I mean, I talk a lot about. We were talking about that earlier about hallucinations. I didn't put King of SEO in my YouTube title to rank for it because
sure, absolutely, it was a term of endearment for a friend of yours. I like it.
Yes.
Yeah. And I felt very arrogant doing it, and I really, I think like anyone who knows me, I think 99% of people got it right. I'm not trying to like the people in that list.
No, it was a joke.
Very
it was
serious.
A joke.
Yeah,
it was a joke.
They're very serious SEOs. I don't have the time, and also I'm a boring PageRank guy, right? Like a lot of people say to me on X, "Shut up! You're talking about SEO from 20 years ago." I'm like, I know, I'm talking about SEO from 20 years ago. I can't change Google, and so I'll talk about the things I know and the things that work. And lo and behold, the King of SEO was done using 20-year-old SEO, I guess, because my website's 21 years old, so it's definitely using 20 years old ideas.
All right, I have 2 more questions for you.
Sure.
First one, you mentioned some names, but who are other like SEOs and digital marketers that people should be following on X or LinkedIn?
If you're very much in brand marketing and you want to understand SEO and brand marketing, Morty Oberstein is a really great guy, and he's very friendly. He's a really great guy to follow on X. Who else do I really, really like? I know I'm very fond of Nathan Gotch. I know he's setting up an AI tool. Ryan Jones, who owns Soap Recon and is head of SEO at Razorfish, is a really, really great guy. Very nice to follow. Very interesting takes on SEO. Very ahead of his game. There are a lot of really interesting things happening in SEO. Who else is also really good? And Smarty is very knowledgeable, very strong. I would have to go through and look at my X. The people I follow on social media are the people the people I talk to are probably the people I admire the most.
That's a great answer. Thank you. All right. So last question. You said to me over DM, you're like, yeah, I have some actionable SEO hacks that I can talk about. And I think you've already shared a ton, but are there any that you left out?
Let's see, because I did make a little list.
Oh, yeah?
So I think we may have covered a lot of them.
We covered a lot.
We did cover a lot. I think don't give up on link building, but don't think building your own is all you can give. I like it. So B2B is a hard area to do link building, right? And I think a lot of newbie marketers, especially people who have like general roles in companies, like they're maybe doing social media and SEO and so on. One of the things we did at Kemp, and the co-founder specifically told me not to do it, which meant that I absolutely went and did it, is we actually offered my time out to a lot of our partners. So we had a lot of partners that were working in the IT distribution MSP space, and they weren't good at SEO. They did things like golfing events and stuff like that, right? And marketing lists. And so we said, hey, we'll help you with your SEO. We'll not only will we build a page about what we do and put it to you, but we'll help you rank for things in your area and in your business. And that enabled us to write a lot of content and put links in it. And it helped us fix things on their website where they had stupid page titles that weren't contextual or internal links that weren't contextual, and their ranking went up, their authority went up, and our authority went up. And again, we did have a very big PR budget towards the end. I think for a year or two, the PR budget ended up in my lap at like something ridiculous, like $80,000 a month. Just remember, we were spending $200,000 a month on Google Ads. So for a small startup, SEO was everything. We built an 18-person marketing team, and Google accounted for 99% of our leads. We had 7 Twitter accounts. We had a verified Twitter account, and yet Google accounted for 99% of our leads. And one of the big things was going to all of our partners, especially the small guys in Europe. And that's actually how I got hired, is we grew Europe so fast that Europe became bigger than the US. And that's when they said, like, you have to become an employee. But we went to the small guys who said, yeah, here's the keys to our website. You go optimize it. And so there are those partnerships available. There's so much creativity in Google. If you know if you could understand the system and break it down to this page links to this page about this, and then here are the Google rules. So if you don't break any of the Google rules, you're not going to get in trouble. And then it just works by pages linking to pages. That's a building framework. That's not a set of restrictions. You can go broad, right? You can go with PR. You can go with building content sites. Like, why have one domain name? Why have one website that you spend $1 million on the design? Why not build 10 websites? Why not have domain names that match specific industries? There's so much you can do. The limitation is really only to what you can actually build a case for. Right? I've had brilliant ideas that got shut down because I was terrible at building a good case for it, and rightly so. And then there were things I was incredibly passionate about that I was able to translate to a business reason for doing. One of them was I built another site called Exchange Load Balancer, and a guy who reached out to me that I helped him with his SEO turned out to be the exchange infrastructure vice president at one of the world's biggest banks, who was being moved to the US but ended up getting stuck in Europe. And I said to him, just imagine a use case where you had to balance Microsoft Exchange in Amazon. And my boss was like, do not write this. This is a stupid idea. We'll look terrible. And so I built an entire website because he said, don't put this on my website. So I went and bought Exchange Load Balancer, and I bought a $40 WordPress theme, and I stuck it up on that site. And as it turned out, 20 years ago, when Amazon was being built, they standardized on Microsoft Exchange Server. Fast forward to where they built the AWS cloud and Microsoft built Azure, Amazon couldn't have their emails hosted on Office 365. And so they had to host it on Amazon. And there was no documentation anywhere in the world that told them how to load balance in AWS, except this $50 WordPress site that we built that had a 4-page guide. When I say 4-page, it was 4 sections. Each page was like 60 pages long. And they became a $250,000 a year client because of that.
That's awesome. And was that Exchange load balancer or like keywords around that? Would you say they were high volume or low volume or in the middle?
The way Kemp came from like a backwater technology company on Long Island out in the middle of nowhere to a $250 million tech company was when Microsoft launched Exchange 2012 and they said you don't need a load balancer, and the whole tech world was like, you cannot do this any other way. And people started Googling load balancer, and Edison Partners came along and offered the founders $25 million. And so Exchange load balancer was our first 50 million revenue.
This is actually just a personal question. Obviously you're amazing at SEO. Have you ever considered doing your own, because you're doing it for so many people and so many companies? I mean, I think you know what I'm going to say. Would you ever consider just making your own startup and doing it for your own startup?
That's a very good question, and yes, I have. And I think it speaks to a number of things. One is, it's easy to be an expert in SEO and nothing else, right? Especially if you have ADHD, and that's just my one. Like, I studied accounting, and I probably fell 5 years behind in my taxes, right? So founding your own company is something else, and I talked myself out of building an affiliate HCU site, an affiliate AdSense site, because I kind of saw something like HCU. I'm not going to say I'm not a visionary, right? I'm not amazing at SEO. I started out saying, SEO is incredibly simple, right? So I actually do have 3 startups in the works, and I had to take a break from startups 10 years ago, and that kind of like, so I killed off 3 startups when I joined Chem. And so I have 3 startups in the offing. But I think just because you're good at SEO doesn't necessarily mean you're good at business. I've had other businesses in the past. I love
so
being
true.
self-employed.
That is so true.
But and I take a hat off to the SEOs that in a couple of years have built $1 million enterprises. I really do. They're smart people. I just look at PageRank as a very simple system that's very easy to tweak. And I just have a mindset that tells me it is that. I remember listening to a talk at Limerick Open Coffee that was organized by a friend of mine, James Corbett. And this guy was the head of the German version of LinkedIn, and he happened to be Irish, and he happened to be the chief financial officer. And he was saying when he was in Germany that there were conflicting rules, that you could do this, but not this. And there was another rule saying you could do this and this. And it was very, very difficult because Germans have a perception of being dogmatic. And eventually he said, look, I'm a foreigner. These laws don't apply to me. If I get called up in court, I'm just going to say, look, I was trained as an accountant in Ireland. I didn't really know what this meant. Didn't apply to me. And I think I just read a lot of rules and just go like, I'm sorry, I don't understand it. It doesn't apply to me. And I think that's what sort of like made me a good software engineer for a while. And then when I got bored of that, SEO just took over.
But you haven't gotten bored of SEO.
And yet here we are. I genuinely thought SEO was dead 10 years ago.
Did you actually? You actually did. So you gave in to the SEO is dead hype.
I not gave into it. I genuinely thought that, and I was spending a lot of time on Twitter at the time, and I genuinely thought like it's not going to be the 90% channel that it was. I definitely thought it was going to lose way, right? I got that wrong. I got that wrong.
I don't know if you've seen this on Google Trends. Search engine optimization it's not just at an all-time high. It is at a dramatic all-time high. Maybe like 5 times. Yeah, like it's crazy.
I did. I shared that yesterday. Like, here's your daily reminder that SEO is dead. It's like huge.
Yeah.
Like it's 4x what it was 2 months ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. It makes sense. I see very much like a lot of ADHD people, I build things in reverse. I don't understand steps A, B, and C until I'm like in XYZ area, right? And I can see very much, like I started at Dell as a software engineer, and I ended up owning 64 NT4 servers and I loved NT4. And I can see that Google is to AI or web infrastructure what NT4 is to the virtualized VM world of the cloud today. The VM virtual machine cloud under VMware or Azure Hyper-V runs on NTFS, which is now a 40-year-old technology. It just got to a point where it's been tweaked slightly, but it's the same thing. Nothing has beaten PageRank, in my opinion, right? I know a lot of people don't like it. I know a lot of people think that content should rank for itself. I like the Aristotle theory that there's a great question begs the question. I think a lot of people use it out of context, but what it means is if you want to rank in Google for best CRM software, there is already a million other people ahead of you, right? Your document is the claim. So if you've got a document that says 10 reasons why we're the best CRM, or 10 things we've done to make it this the best CRM, or 10 quotes from CEOs that say we are the best CRM, that is still a claim. The document, the book, cannot be evidence for the claim. The claim is under question. And that is throughout society. If you go to a judge, right? If you go to court, you sue someone, the court doesn't accept either of your testimony as evidence. It can be entered as evidence. It's rejected as evidence. It's a claim. All evidence has to be tested out, and that's why PageRank is so fundamental. It has nothing to do with page quality, and that's why people hate it so much. There is no way Google can assess content quality because of its subjectiveness, in my opinion. If design and quality was so objective, there would be threads all over the internet where people would put up their web design and everyone go, yes, that is an amazing 7.3 out of 10. But anyone can point a hole in it because they particularly don't like it, right? And so that is the problem with it that I see. And that's why I think PageRank, Microsoft copied it, Yandex copied it, Baidu copied it, Brave Search, which is what Claude runs on, copied it.
Yeah.
It's like binary, the way we build files, and the reason 4K is so like difficult and lumbersome to use is because we rely on binary and we've got hexadecimal systems. So when you look at video streaming, it's JPEG by JPEG by JPEG. When you get to 4K, it's like 100 million times the data. If you look at how I used to write in assembly code when I was at Dell. We built every computer using machine code and assembly.
Wow.
It's like using assembly language, MASM 4, which came out of the University of Wisconsin, I think, or Michigan or something like that. It was a really bizarre story. When you look at that, all we've done is just the amount of bytes per second has just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, but it's the same architecture as an IBM PC x86 from 1990. And so I think that's where PageRank is. I don't think it can be beaten. It's how TikTok works, right? You upload a video, you give it a title, and then it's surfaced through different groups. You can't really do that with content, but it's what it does.
It's funny because it's funny that you mentioned TikTok because something that I say to people, like actually I had this conversation with Rand Fishkin when he was on the show, was that doing SEO for so long, it made me a lot better at social. It made me understand things that social media algorithms value.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah, I actually met Rand's brother and his mom at a talk in DCU University in Dublin like 15 years ago. And I met his mom, and she's the nicest person. At the time, she called herself... Moz at the time was SEO Moz, and she handed out business cards that said SEO Mom.
Oh, that's funny.
Isn't that so nice?
Yeah, that is.
And I ended up being on like a tiny panel with them, which is like my only claim to fame. And after that, I went to work at Microsoft as an SEO. Microsoft asked me to run SEO for their biggest partners in Ireland and Northern Ireland. And I gave a talk to their top gold tier partners at their Leopardstown campus in Dublin. And I built the slide deck and everything said Bing. And then someone came to me afterwards and said, like, for the entire 40 minutes, all I talked about was Google.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine was actually a sales guy for Microsoft. And he went out to dinner. His vice president came over from Germany and he pulled out an iPhone. And the guy nearly broke it over his head.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
But luckily, as it worked out, the sales and marketing team actually wanted their partners to focus on Google because it just was so dominant. So it actually worked out fine.
I mean, if you understand Google, you have a good grasp on every other search engine.
Pretty much. I mean, one of the funniest things, if you take your website and it's crawled, not discovered in Google, go to Bing, open an account, because it'll cross-check your GSC credentials, so you don't have to go through validation anymore. If you have no backlinks, it'll literally pop up a message saying you don't have backlinks from authoritative sites. It's just that simple. There's no argument about it. The Google content quality issue is just so difficult because, like you said, right at the start, you took your page, didn't change the content, republished it, and indexed just fine, right? A lot of people also say like there has to be information gain, and I know there's a pattern for information gain, but when I write FAQs, I don't write I don't know what's going to rank, right? I'm not going to sit down and do a PageRank calculation for every single question. What I do is I pick questions where I think there's not a lot of competition, publish them. And
that's what I do, by the way. That's what I do, by the way, yeah.
So the way I get to like a 90% accuracy is by brute force. I pick 100 topics, and then 70% of them will get there. And then guess what? I don't have to do any more work on them. Now I have to work on the other 30%, but that's really easy because they're in the same topic clusters as the other 70%. A little bit of interlinking, job done, right? So
my method is it's like two main things. It's build topical authority, and then pick keywords, pick like bottom of funnel transactional keywords in your topic that don't have a lot of competition, and target those. Yes. That's those also, two things.
Also, stop putting your brand name in the page title.
Oh,
Please
yeah?
Stop putting your brand name in the page title. There's a site name.
All right, but how about if you do it like keyword, and then you have the pipe, and then you have the brand. Yeah, really?
Stop doing it. Absolutely.
Why?
Do it for your pricing page, right? That's fine, right? Do it for your pricing page. Do it for your contact page. Do it for your support page. Stop doing it. It doesn't help Google, right? It doesn't. You want most of your branded traffic to go to homepage. Actually, if you're a big company and you have like 27 branded terms, you actually want to thread them out to different pages. So you, like, for example, if you're an investor term, you want to actually have a specific page or subdomain. You want to actually farm that keyword out there. You want to spread that so that you don't have it all focused on one page. That gives you other pages that you can then launch topic clusters from. But if you're a new site and you start putting your branded name, you actually those pages will sub-rank, and they'll screw with the CTR for your homepage. They will also, if your brand name or your domain name includes generic words, you can really exacerbate cannibalization.
That makes sense. Well, it makes sense for news sites, or if you have generic words in your brand name. But how about if you
dilute your page title?
Yeah, even if you have them 100%. All the way at the end, and you're targeting a long tail term.
I cannot think of a good use case for it. Right, like if you're first of all your page title, your page title should be used beyond the 65 character limit. Right, yes. It doesn't exist. You are always going to rank for your brand name, and you don't want to dilute the keywords any percentage. I'm not saying it's going to harm everyone. I'm sure.
So from my perspective, I always recommended it. One, because that's something that I learned on day one at Dentsu Aegis. So that was just like from my training. But then, like, okay. I from a critical thinking standpoint, I felt like it actually made page titles stand out from other page titles, because I feel like it seems more professional. And just this from a human perspective. So if you are going to search, it looks more professional and trustworthy. But that's an aesthetic thing, and maybe that's incorrect, and I'm wrong all the time. That was my reasoning behind it.
That makes sense. I think I would fire questions at that, like, well, if they've never heard of you, is it trustworthy, right?
I would. I would say, that's a fair question. And I would say if other people are just straight up targeting the keyword and that's all the page title is, I think I would trust more. I think I would trust more a page title that had the brand name at the end of it, separated with a pipe, versus a page title that didn't. And the reason for that is, it's like this brand is proud of their brand. So maybe they believe in themselves. I feel like just the keyword as the page title and that's it. To me, that's like old school's SEO spammy. It comes off to me as old, in the same way that an EMD might come off to me as old school SEO spammy. Not to criticize people who do EMDs.
Sure. I mean, I still think .biz is spammy, right? .net and .biz.
Sure.
And
sure.
And I think John Mueller actually said they are actually spammy. This year he was quoted. Yeah. So
was that on the SEO subreddit? Because I saw him write about that, and I made a post. Yeah, he was talking
somewhere
about TLDs. And
yes.
Yeah. I made a video about that.
You typically have the domain name in the brand. You also have the site name, right, which sits under the page title above the domain name in the snippet. That also has your brand name.
And Google will sometimes take it and put it in the page title. Yeah.
And if you leave it off, Google will often do it. Yes, right. it will. And I just think, like, I don't think there's. Sometimes I think it does harm sites, right? And there are a number of instances where we've taken it off, and especially where you're on pages that you're again trying to compete with someone else, and you're trying to make sure you're 100% relevant to use every ounce of authority you have. It has to come out.
Okay.
And then in extreme cases, which I concede are not all cases, and they're obviously just isolated cases, or they're just cases that I happen to pick up on it, they do cause cannibalization issues and multiple pages ranking for the same thing. But I think that when I look at SEO and what its main purpose is, if you're trying to, for example, disrupt the CRM space or the VPN space or the dark web space, people don't know who you are. They're looking for what is a dark web monitoring tool. They'll click on the thing that says this is what a dark web monitoring tool is. They may take 6 or 7 visits to even recognize your brand. That's why I say it's really interesting when you watch Microsoft Clarity and you look at how people are actually trying to disregard information, right? We think that by putting information in, by giving everything into the system, we're optimizing it. Not really, right? Like you'll watch people scroll down to icons, for example, like where you see, that you get those icons, like the 3 lines means like Wi-Fi, and an iceberg means the dark web because there's like 70% of it's under and you can't see it. People scroll to those in pages, they skip all of the product management text and they scroll down and they start looking for basic concepts to pick up. Like we found the most effective Google ads were just 3-letter acronyms. So like I can remember the best ad that I presented to the board of directors, and it's like so geeky, was like it had like TLS, SSL, TMG, this, and it was just 3 lines of 180 characters of 3-letter because that's what sysadmins are sitting there. They're going like, does it do TMG? Yep. TMG forefront? Yep. SSL offloading? Yep. And they're just ticking it off. And basically, nobody reads the ad. They glance at it and they start looking like, does it? If I'm looking for an Nginx load balancer and it starts talking about Microsoft IIS, I'm gone. I'm dead. It cannot do the same thing.
I say the same thing, which is I 1,000% agree with what you just said. So number one is one of my favorite all-time threads on Reddit, just in general, posts on Reddit. It's on the SEO subreddit, and it's some guy, and he's like, I put a TLDR, too long didn't read, right there at the top, and my conversions increased by 33%. And what does that actually mean in practice? It means that for blog posts, gave the answer right there when someone got to the page, gave the answer right there. For product pages, said exactly what the product is, like just very specific, right there above the fold before people start scrolling. Conversions increased 33%. And then what you do is naturally you're going to go deeper on that topic on the rest of the page, and people who are genuinely interested in that, they're going to keep going down. So that's huge. You gotta give people what they're looking for.
Also, when I do a lot of reviews, because I work in the B2B space, a lot of sales come in as leads. And the CEO start every meeting with like, here's a list of people we want them to know that we're US based, or we're this, or we're this, or this. And sure enough, he'll get on a call and someone will start asking questions, and he's like, this should be in the landing page. I'm like, it's in the landing page, right? They're just not reading it, right? Is the other thing, right? So
it has to be, that's the other thing. Like you said, it's in, and that's why these the FAQ idea that have like actual answers as their own pages was so interesting, because the logic behind it is you would like someone naturally, maybe they would be looking on the homepage for this, but they're going to be looking. They have to look through lots of information, but people want their answers fast. So you have like a page that targets a single question with the answer right there. You get to the page, you get what you want, and you're very happy.
Do you remember a podcast years ago? I think Rand Fishkin was on it, and every Friday they reviewed
Whiteboard Friday
pages. It wasn't Whiteboard Friday. It was a team of other people. They were all like on a panel.
roast my landing
page.
Yeah.
Yes, and every Thursday people would submit landing pages and they'd roast them and they'd say like, oh, this is very nice, but this is too pretentious, and it went design. And then someone pulled up Salesforce's landing page and it looked like something out of Front Page. It was like 3 bullet points, a horrible form. It was all in the top left, and everyone, you could see all the hands are going up. Everyone wanted to turn it roasting it, and Rand just said, look, I know the guys, and they have A/B tested this 1,000 times, and it converts. Let's move on. And then I was like,
yeah,
this is the best evidence.
By the way,
for
but this what you just said is going. It's been going viral now on X for like the last year, which is these seemingly ugly landing pages, but they're ugly because they give people what they want, like right there. And I think the example that's always cited, I think it's like icon.com or something. And it's like a million things right there above the fold. But those a million things is everything that someone is looking for, and it's right there, and it's still clear enough for people to make out. Yeah.
My boss and the co-founder of Chem, Peter Malrud, came up with this brilliant landing page. And I think it was built as a Marketo form. And all it was a table. And what we were doing is we were trying to chip away at 2 big companies, F5, which is a $1 billion company out of Seattle that sold load balancers, and they were 10 times our price, and Citrix, who were like 9.8 times our price. And whenever you buy a product in the corporate world, you typically come up with 2 other competitors. You say, here's the feature benefit list, right? The feeds and speeds, as we call it. And so what he did is he sat down one weekend and he built a whole table. And he listed F5's products range from expensive to low. And we just put it in a table with no logos, no icons, no navigation. And if you moved the mouse, it just popped up saying, if you enter your details, we'll email you a copy of the spreadsheet. And we got so many leads from it. Because if you look at the person in the journey, they probably were told to buy an F5 or a Citrix. Maybe they wanted a Citrix and they wanted to justify it by saying how expensive F5 was, or vice versa. And they'd never heard of Kemp. And neither of those companies at the time published their prices. And because it was a table, Google published the whole top of the table in it. And they included F5, Citrix, and Kemp. And it showed that we were 1/10 of the price. And we were first, and people clicked on it. And then they got the table. And then they had to enter the email. And essentially, one is we had done all their homework for them. Right? So they had all the information they wanted. But now they had to go to the CFO and go like, the Kemp has the same SSL offloading. The Kemp has the same pages per second, can handle 3 million users a second, but it's $4,000, not $44,000. And we got a lot of sales from that. And it was the most ugliest spreadsheet ever.
But it was clear.
It was clear.
Yeah.
Actually, it wasn't.
It wasn't? Wait, it wasn't?
It was clear in its data, but it went over the screen. It went over, it was a massive,
but it gave people what they wanted pretty fast.
As Ron Seal, which is a British oil for wood brand, said, it does what it does. It does what it says on the tin, right?
Okay. I mean I made you didn't like this thread, and that's fine. Where my UX thread, my user experience thread on X, but one of the things that I wrote, which was clarity above cleverness, and that's something that I really believe in.
And maybe I did like it. Maybe I wasn't clear. There's very few things I don't like, so maybe I'll have to revisit it. Right?
No, it's fair. Like everyone has. It's fine if you didn't like it. It's but no, really, I'm open to. God, I mean, you get a lot of feedback. I get a lot of feedback. Like it's just it comes with the territory.
I got feedback just before the call where someone said that I shouldn't. I only rank in like number 4, number 5 for SEO New York, and I was like, yeah, but I ranked first for SEO Agency New York.
Yeah,
and they're like, you're talking about PageRank. It's 2025. This is from like 2012. I'm like, wow, it's still in the SEO Starter Guide. So then I just took his domain name, put it in SEMrush, and they had no rank position, none.
Let me ask you, why do you think Because in the SEO community, it's just people attack each other so much.
Yeah,
and I don't really understand why it's so. Maybe it's like that in every industry, and maybe it's just we're so deep into the industry that we see it more than other people. But I'm just like, how does that even? How does that help?
How does it help? It's very common in IT. When I was an engineer in Dell, and software engineers would become business engineers, it was like they were outed from the community. It was a joke, you know. There's a thing about like choosing the best technology and being attached to it. It's a very tribal thing.
Yeah.
I've had people come to me and say like, why do old school SEOs still hang on to PageRank? And I'm like, you don't understand. We can't change Google. It's the same as like after HCU, a lot of people would go to subreddits for SEOs like Big SEO, R SEO, Tech SEO, and say like, it's time to give up on Google. They let us down. And it's like, I understand that you see us as your tribe, but we're here because people go to Google. People don't go to Google because of us, right? We exist only because people go to Google. People stop going to Google, we're not needed. But that's not the reason. We have no ability to change direction, right? So it's pointless. You can come to Google and say, look, Google destroyed my lifestyle, and I empathize with that. I think it's terrible. I hate it. I'm very sorry, but there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. That's one angle to look at this, right? So why is there so much infighting, and why is there so much? A lot of it comes down to like, this is where people make a living from. And so when you take, you know, your monthly income check, and you tie yourself to, look, I want to be the best, that deliver the best service I can, it becomes very part of your ego. And I don't mean ego necessarily in the big, you know, in the sort of like expansive sense. I mean like, you know, your critical function of survival.
People are afraid
to your belief.
People are afraid
Absolutely.
to look incompetent, because then they might not have as many clients.
And they actually try, you know, like some of the most stupid responses are when people go, "Ella, you," like somebody said, like somebody gave advice is like, just focus on your tech stack. For SEO, this is the most stupid thing I've ever heard, right? And I said, like, why? And they replied back, LOL, capital letters, like as if you're, you know, either you're stupid or you're being funny, stupid, but you're stupid, right? So if you cannot defend a point of principle with empirical data or a sound logical argument, and you're forced to go, you're an idiot, or you're a retard, or you're whatever, all these horrible things, right? You're not making a point. It's a bad look. Right,
it's a bad look.
Stupid. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Go ahead. No, sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna thank you for coming on.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope we get a follow up, because I've really enjoyed it.
I was gonna say that too. Like, you're welcome back anytime, and I hope you come back anytime.
I'm absolutely up for that, and I'm sure you have lots of other great guests, and I can't wait to watch those podcasts too. But I would love to come back for sure.
Thank you, David. You are a legend in the SEO community. Where should everybody find you?
You know, X is the best place to come and find me. And you know, I try to help out as many people as I can. If I can help you, I will. If I can't, I'll tell you. But I'm not here to make money. I'm here to help people. That's really what I say.
David will give you some great answers. LinkedIn as well, right?
I'm on LinkedIn as well. Yeah, and you could probably find me on Reddit. I have a primary position SEO on Reddit.
That's your agency. I don't think we mentioned that. Yeah. Thank you again, David.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Please stick around though when I hit stop, because this will have to upload.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, but for everybody who's watching or who's listening, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Edward Show. This is my daily digital marketing podcast. This is episode 845. 845 days in a row doing this podcast. No days missed. So thank you, everybody, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye now.